Dedicate today's shiur to a friend of ours, Lara Noack, who used to attend, who I used to work with at the Chevra Kadisha. We would work hand in hand on many projects and helping lots of people.
Did you hear this?
As a regular attendee at my Pesach retreat program.
Don't want it here.
Young lady passed away this morning. Very sad. And a good friend we lost, very sad. So we're dedicating today's shiur. She was 41. Yes, she was sick recently. We're going to dedicate the shiur today to her memory. Lara Noack. Yeah. On that note, ladies and gents, tomorrow, please God, 11 a.m., we're going to do the Megillah reading right here at Chabad House. We will also be doing Megillah readings at multiple retirement facilities throughout the day. So if you need a Megillah reading, you can ideally come here. Otherwise, let me know and I'll tell you if I'm doing it at one of the retirement facilities near you. Certainly the Chevra Kadisha facilities have it organized. What I'll be doing this evening at Willowbrook and tomorrow, please got at Ranki Slachta, as well as at Silwood Lodge, as well as at my shul twice, as well as at here once. So there'll be lots of Megillah readings. And please God, there's no reason anyone should not be able to hear the Megillah as it is Purim. But let's talk about Purim, because Purim is not just a Jewish Halloween. We know that Halloween is a nice, fun, holiday, but it's not a Jewish holiday. In fact, it is distinctly un-Jewish, and there's so many parts to it. It's trick or treat, right? They say either you give me the treat, it's like a demand. Give me something. It's not Jewish. Jewish is we give others. That's Shalach Manas. We are giving gifts to others. And I want to highlight today and talk about some of the themes, some of the ideas of how Purim works, how it's different than trick or treat or any other holidays that you might be familiar with, and lessons that we could learn from Purim that are really relevant. So let's first talk about some of the messages and lessons about Purim, how to practice the holiday. And then if there's time, I want to take you through some insights, some ideas about why we do these things. Okay, so let's start. For many of us, especially the young at heart, the first thing that comes to mind when we think about Purim is what? Fancy dress. When I first came to this country, I told the people, tomorrow you must come to shul for Purim in your costumes. You don't want to know what the ladies looked like that day in shul. I don't know, in America, we don't call it a costume. We call it a bathing suit. Luckily, I didn't tell anybody to come in their birthday suits. Anyways, Purim is the day we get dressed up. As a kid, I loved to dress as a king, as a queen, as an astronaut. Yes, I put on my mother's sheitel and I was Queen Esther. Then I decided to be Vashti when I was a teenager and had all my acne. I said, I'm Vashti now. But we like to get dressed up as our favorite superheroes or whoever we want to get dressed up like, yes? Yeah. Haman's Kral. Sorry, for those who are not local, you won't get it. It's a local joke. Haman's Kral. Yeah, very good. But why do we dress up in fancy dress? Why do we put on costumes and masks? Well, we see the hiddenness of God. In fact, you see that in the Hamantash as well. By the way, the Hamantash was originally called a Montash. It wasn't that we were rewarding Haman with giving him a special dedication in our cookies and pastries that we eat. It was called a Montash. The poppy seeds were inside. With time, the name became Hamantash. All right. So because you know what? Anyone who messes with the Jews, we turn them into a food. All right. So Antiochus, the Hanukkah guys became Latkes. And the Pesach, we gave them matzah and maror and charoises. So Haman got his chance. You mess with the Jews, you become a food. That's it. We're going to eat you. We're going to make sure you're gone, obliterated, finished. Finito la camino. The Haman's hat. Who knows? Is that the shape of Haman's hat? Or the ya, or the name? That's not really the point. The idea is, like you were saying, Rochelle, that God is not mentioned in the Megillah even once. The point is that it's camouflage. It's hidden in the Purim story and in life, we also, if we pay attention, if we notice, like I was telling you last week in the shiur, we'll see God's hand in every aspect of our life, but we have to pay attention, we have to notice it, and we will see it, and we will experience it. But of course, Purim is certainly one of our most fun holidays, and that's why we sing the song. Madua lo Purim pamayim bashana, la 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 la. Okay, tomorrow Ronnie Leah, who's got a better voice and can play music, please God, he will entertain you with real music, good entertainment tomorrow. So come dressed up, come have fun. But my friends, the Megillah itself makes no mention of Batman or I don't know, who else do we get dressed up as? Superman or no mention of any of those costumes in the Megillah. So there's no mention even to get dressed up in the Megillah. But it's a beautiful custom and no doubt excellent. But certainly don't confuse it with Halloween or Mardi Gras or any other. Is there a South African holiday when you get dressed up? Halloween? No? People don't even observe Halloween here? Heritage Day, people get dressed up. There's no doubt that Purim is connected to Heritage Day in many ways. It's a day that we celebrate our heritage. When is Heritage Day? Oh, it even comes in such close proximity to Purim. Heritage Day, how beautiful. So celebrate your heritage. And the reason we get dressed up, like we said, one of the reasons, I'm sure there's others, but I'm not going to focus on it today, right now, is because like in the Purim story where everything seems to be, in the natural order, God is disguised and covered in nature. So we dress up, highlighting, emphasizing that idea. Perhaps tomorrow I'll give you some other ideas relating to that as well, but I just didn't want to digress because that's not really the purpose of today's year. But yes. No, go ahead. I like to hear other people's reasons. I'm not giving away all my reasons, otherwise I won't have what to tell you tomorrow.
That's not a reason.
Yes.
That's great. I want to ask you, do all the youth in America celebrate Halloween?
So firstly, I don't know about all youth, but certainly growing up in New York, Halloween is a very popular holiday. But I'll give you another one of the things. They throw eggs. So you get egged on Halloween. We don't throw eggs on Purim. Okay, I'll take you into the customs of Purim in a second right now. We don't throw eggs on people on Purim. We don't demand people, treat or trick. That's not the way it works. We give things on Purim. We don't take, we don't demand.
That's not the reason my question.
Oh.
The reason my question is, if Jews are celebrating Halloween.
Jews do, unfortunately.
I've got a problem.
Yes.
Halloween has got very pagan overtones.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know. So when my son was saying yesterday, oh, it's like the Jewish Halloween, my wife really gave him a proper correction. There's nothing about it that is, first of all, Halloween comes long after Purim because Christianity only started a good 500 years after the Purim story. Secondly, it is very different than Halloween. Very, very different. And let's go into some of the significant explanations and understandings. I want to actually go straight into the halachas because we want to at least cover that. Okay, so we're going to do this from the Megillah itself as we're going to read it tonight. What the Megillah gives us is a concise encapsulation of 4 special mitzvahs. Can you not see? Oh, yeah, the screen. Apologies, everyone. How about now? Yeah. You know what, ladies and gents? Pull out your Zooms. I think they could see it better on Zoom. Can you see? Are the letters big enough? I tried to keep the letters big enough because these are long texts. Okay, so these mitzvahs, oops, not text 2 yet. We didn't even read text 1. Let's read text 1 now. These are the 4 mitzvahs that constitute the halachic dimension of Purim as it was originally established by Mordechai and Esther in the Megillah. If you want, don't worry, the next text, I will give you it as it is in the halacha, as it's written in Shulchan Aruch. But let's start off first with the way it is in the Megillah. There, let's read it as follows. It says in the Megillah, Al-Kain, this is in chapter 9, second last chapter of the Megillah. Hayudim ha-prazim ha-yoshvim ba'arei ha-prazos. Oh, you didn't want it in Hebrew. English. Okay. Therefore, the Jewish villagers who live in open towns make the 14th day of the month of Adar, a day of joy and feasting and a festive day and of sending portions to one another. What day of Adar is it today? 13th. Very good. So this takes place tonight and tomorrow, the 14th. As the days when the Jews rested from their enemies and the month that was reversed for them, reversed for them, please God, for us too. Any calamities, challenges, difficulties should be reversed and transformed into joy. Reversed from their grief to joy and from mourning to a festive day, to make them days of feasting and joy and sending portions one to another and gifts to the poor. Do you see it right there? I should have highlighted it. I was actually going to bold it for you, but in the next text I did bold it, so there you'll get it. The Jews took upon themselves what they had commenced. Look at this verse as well. This is going to be a highlight of our discussion. After we get through the customs and the laws of Purim, I want to focus on this verse, okay? To do and what Mordechai had written to them. So again, the Jews took upon themselves what they had commenced to do and what Mordechai had written to them. We'll get back to it. Good. I'm glad you're asking, because that is what the second half of today's shir is about, that verse. Okay. Consequently, these days are recalled and observed in every generation, by every family, every province, and every city. These days of Purim shall never cease among the Jews. You see this? If you're ever worried about any holidays disappearing, I'm sure some people won't mind if Yom Kippur goes away. If you don't come to our Pesach retreat, you probably don't mind if Pesach goes away. But Purim will never cease. It says it right here in the Megillah. And the memory of them shall never perish among their descendants. So this story of Purim is something you could look forward to for many years to come. So here we have it, these special practices, as the Megillah tells us, and we'll put it now here as it's written in Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law. That is, what are the 4 mitzvahs? We'll read it inside. But let's quickly remember, I like to give it a mnemonic, because there is feasting. What is the feasting? What's the mnemonic? I'm going to call it the N. The word mnemonic, is it spelled with an M or an N? Mnemonic, right? Starts with an M. So we're going to do it with an M today. 4 things. Feast. What's a good M for feast? Meal. Don't forget, you need to have a festive meal on Purim. The second thing is matanot le'avyonim, giving charity to the poor. What's an M for that in English? We need a nice M for charity. What's money? Very good. Thank you. Money. Good. You see, work collaboration here. The third one is Megillah. Yeah, we don't need an English word for Megillah, do we? Scroll, but it doesn't work. And what's the fourth one? I'm missing one. Oh, meaning. Okay, good. The fourth one is Mishlach Manot, which is giving gifts. Give me an English word for that. We need an M for that. Giving gifts. Mishlach Manot. Come on. Pardon? Mementos. All right. We'll go with that for now. So 4 M's. Mishlach Manot, Matanot Levyonim, Megillah, and Mishteh. Meal, Megillah, money to the poor, and munchies to your friends. That's a good question. It seems that it's to your fellow Jews, because as we see in the Megillah story, I want to give you another little insight that comes to my mind. I read it from, I forget who. I like to give credit to who I learn things from, but I don't always remember. If I remember, I'll tell you. So one of the commentaries says that last week in our class, we read about how the Jews, in Haman's complaint about the Jews, he says, Yeshna Amecha, there's this one nation that's Mefuzar Mefarad Ben Amim, that is divided and splintered and spread amongst the nations, your people, right? It's not worthwhile for the king to keep these people. So this commentary, he says that perhaps another way of reading that is that we were splintered and divided amongst ourselves. And that's why Esther turns to Mordechai. When Mordechai asks for her help, and she says, Leich kenoises kol hayudim, go gather all the Jews, bring them together. That's why we need this mitzvah of Mishlach Manot. We need to do things to come together. So we come together to hear the Megillah. we come together to enjoy a festive meal together. By the way, after our Purim party here tomorrow, if you want to join me at our shul tomorrow evening, I might even move to my house because we hired a Persian chef, a kosher Jewish religious Persian chef who is preparing for us. I can't even pronounce the names of all these foods. Kaftar, I mean, these are Persian names. Real Iranian chef. His name is Yisrael Baruchi. He used to have a restaurant here called MCY. And he is going to make all our food for tomorrow for our Purim meal. So if any of you want to join, just let me know. You'll be most welcome to join us for a real Farsi Persian Purim party. And we had 20 Persian Jews in our shul this Purim. It was this past Shabbos. It's quite nice. So it inspired us to go for this Persian-themed Purim celebration tomorrow. Pardon? Tourists, yeah. I'm just going to escape for a second. Whoops. Let's go out.
Are they here for Purim?
They are not here for Purim. They will be in Cape Town for Purim. So, unfortunately, they will not be here for Purim. Are they well, you could say they're Sephardim. I guess makes sense that they're Sephardim. I'm just messing up my thing here. Okay, let's go back. Play from current slide. Let's just make sure. I just noticed little mistakes in my slides, so I wanted to make sure you get the right presentation. Can everybody see? Okay, let's read it in the Shulchan Aruch. All right. Code of Jewish law. Let's see what it says. One is obligated to read the Megillah at night and return and repeat it during the day. So if you heard the Megillah tonight, is that enough? Did you fulfill your mitzvah of Purim? No, you got to hear it again today. It can be read all night. What time is nightfall today? About 7 o'clock. No, earlier. You're thinking Rabbeinu Tam's man. Rabbeinu Tam says 72 minutes after sunset. But we don't, most people don't follow that. And Shabbos terminated 7:07. So I imagine by 7:04. Something like that. So 7 o'clock, we called it for 7. In fact, I called it for 6:45, so hopefully we start by 7. So 7 o'clock, we'll start the Megillah tonight. If anyone wants to join us at Santon Central Shul, I know there'll be a big party here at Chabad House as well. Anyways, let's read the law. What does it say? One is obligated to read the Megillah at night and return and read it again during the day. So tomorrow morning, we have Shachris at our shul at 7 a.m. We'll read the Megillah tomorrow. It can be read all night while the day reading is all day, from sunrise until the end of the day. If one read it from daybreak, he has fulfilled the obligation. So far, so good? All right. Let's continue. One must give at least 2 gifts to 2 poor people. 2 gifts to 2 poor people. So in answer to Tzipporah's question, do they have to be Jewish? In my opinion, for this mitzvah, yes. You can give to any poor people, absolutely. But you have to give to at least 2 Jewish poor people. You want to give to others as well? Sure. But the whole idea of this mitzvah is to create friendship and camaraderie amongst us as Jewish people, because in the Purim story, according to the commentary that I was telling you before, we ourselves were splintered and divided, and we have to do things to bring ourselves, to bridge those gaps and bring ourselves back together. There's no doubt that these days we're also quite splintered. Not in South Africa, thank God we're a beautiful, loving community, everyone here together. But unfortunately, in other places, if you see what's going on in Israel these days, there's a lot of division that needs to be healed and rectified. Why? Let's see. Yes, but whoever, according to halacha, that's most likely referring to your people. Pardon? No, 2 people. At least 2 people. You can give to anyone. It's true. Whoever stretches out their hand, or as he says, whoever stretches out their hand should be given. Now you might say the Shulchan Aruch doesn't say explicitly Jewish, and therefore you're right. I take no umbrage with that. I just was learning, and one of the rabbis also said specifically Jewish because we're talking about a Jewish problem. But in the Code of Jewish law, it doesn't differentiate between Jew or non-Jew. Therefore, I would say, you know what? Give at least 2 Jewish people and give as many non-Jewish people as you like. Not a contradiction, right? Certainly here it says, whoever stretches out their hand, give them. Okay. One should add a festive meal on Purim. This obligation is met with 1 meal. So if you are, what is that called where you fasting? Come on. Today's a fast day called Tainus Esther, but intermittent fasting. If you're intermittent fasting, then you could skip breakfast tomorrow. It's okay. As long as you have one meal on Purim. That's what it says. One meal. You need at least one meal. Making a Purim meal at night does not fulfill this obligation. So even though we'll eat tonight and have festivities, it's not enough. One should be happy and add more during his meal, even at night as well. So night and day, you have to eat both night and day. One must send to his fellow 2 portions of meat or foodstuffs. Okay, I'm looking here and I see amongst our Zoom and Facebook participants, I noticed one-on-one. I noticed a Facebook vegan, and I noticed somebody in Zoom who's a vegetarian, maybe vegan too, I don't know. I don't remember. I'm in trouble now. My wife knows at least. The point is, anyone here vegetarian or vegan or anything else? Huh? You don't eat meat. Okay, that's fine. So we have everywhere. Here, there, and everywhere. There's lots of people who don't eat meat. And by the way, I like meat. I shouldn't be eating meat. It's not so good for gout. So I should probably be in that category as well. Be it as it may, it says here, meat is known to be something that satiates man and makes people happy. So I to eat meat. But he doesn't say it has to be meat. Meat or foodstuffs, anything. But it has to be ready to eat. You can't send somebody a can of, uncooked rice or something, right? It can't be raw fish. It has to be 2 ready-to-eat foods. As the verse says, and of sending portions to one another. 2 portions to one man is the obligation. And anyone who sends more to his fellows is praiseworthy. As a kid, by the way, I should have taken pictures and videos. My kids yesterday were packing for all their classmates and friends. Shalach manis, they were cooking up popcorn and making all types of goodies. Lots of fun. And when I was a kid, it was part of the fun we did and had, making Purim gifts and spending a whole day Purim, delivering gifts, and people would give us tips. I mean, by the end of the day, Purim, I'd count my money. It was in dollars, not in rands. And I made some good bucks. I was very glad to be a delivery boy on Purim. I'm telling you. Many shuls, Chabad houses, and other organizations are going to certainly make the effort, and we will give to you. If you come to our shul tonight, we'll give you shalach manas. If you come to here tomorrow, we will give you shalach manas. You can even double dip if you want. Come tonight and tomorrow. But I'll give you the same thing, whether you come tonight or tomorrow. You will get crisps, you will get sweets, you will get money from me. Everybody come. I'm giving out money tomorrow. All right, you better be here. 11 o'clock for the party. And we're going to fulfill all these mitzvahs in one. All 4 in one. Because we'll read the Megillah. We'll have a nice slideshow for you to watch while we read the Megillah. We will have shalach manis. We will eat a festive meal. Whoever can help Vusi out afterwards with peeling carrots and potatoes will get extra dessert tomorrow. And we'll give you money to give to charity. We'll have pushkas. If you want to put it in the pushkas, you could give to charity to fulfill all the mitzvahs. So again, you have the obligation of all 4. Let's put them on the screen to review just a second. We have the Megillah, right? Number 2, the Mishlach Manas, food. Number 3, Munchies, you called it. Number 3, Matanas Levyanim, gifts to the poor. And number 4, Mishta, a meal. And this is the 4 mitzvahs that we have to do on Purim. And keep an eye for all 4 that you do all 4 of them. Questions? Oh, that's the 5th one, masquerading. Thank you. It's not part of the 4 obligations of Purim, but it's also on M, and that goes well. Masquerading. Thank you. That's also on M. Good. Yeah. Mashke. That's right. Okay. Mashke. We have 6 now. And that is written in the Megillah. I don't encourage anybody. I don't endorse getting drunk, because as a paramedic, if you get drunk and I have to come out to get you, but it is a mitzvah on Purim to get a little tipsy, to be freilach. We're even told, Adelo Yoda, till you don't know the difference between blessed as Mordechai, cursed as Haman. So that's certainly part of it. All right. Ladies and gents, so far, so good. We know now what we're supposed to do. Let's repeat it. We have 6 M's coming out of here from Miriam and Miriam's sister-in-law Tzipporah. So what were they? Meal, money, munchies, Megillah, masquerade, and mashke. All right, if you have any more to add, tell me. Of course, my friends, these 4 special mitzvahs of Purim, they certainly help us to foster a more festive atmosphere to celebrate the holiday, because obviously another M, the miracle that we recall of Purim, the holiday, we celebrate it together in the spirit of joyous generosity, as we discussed, that it's important to, to reverse, to the antidote to our division in those days, that we were splintered, as Haman said, a nation that was split, that was faribbled, that we could rectify it with joy, with giving gifts to each other. But if you stop for a moment, the question is that I need to ask you, what really makes these mitzvahs so special? What's so special about these mitzvahs, or should I say, so special to Purim? Think about it. Every Jewish holiday is accompanied with extra spirit of festivity. Starting Wednesday, please God, we're going to launch straight into preparing for Pesach. I might recycle some of previous year's shiurim. I might create some new ones, time permitting. If I have time, I'll create some new ones for you. If not, nothing wrong with the old ones. I'll give it with a new twist. But the point I'm making is, every holiday, every Yom Tov is marked by special mitzvahs that we celebrate it with, something that's unique to that holiday, that brings immediate associations with it. So we think about Pesach, we have the cleaning, and we have the matzah. And if you think of a sukkah and a lulav, which holiday do you think of? Very good. What if you see a menorah on the street, or you smell latkes? Nice. Shofar, show good. Simchas Torah, the shofar. You had a little bit too much to drink today. Purim's tonight. I'm just kidding. Shofar is Rosh Hashanah. Oh, dancing in the street at the Torah, you're right, that's Simchas Torah. So obviously, these aren't arbitrary symbols, okay? These aren't loosely affiliated rituals or just customs that we do. The mitzvahs, these symbols, they represent essential aspects of each of those holidays. And those are the festive, call it the icons, that are actually mandated by Jewish law on how we're going to celebrate each of these festivals. So what about Purim? All right, let's talk about Purim. You have a picture here that depicts a little bit about Purim, thanks to Google. Remember, costumes, fancy dress, and the gragger noisemakers are just customs. Please God, I'll bring graggers here. Some of the places I only bring, or maybe I will use the arcs. You'll fill up the arcs with coins, and you'll make that into noise. All 4 of these special mitzvahs that we have here on the screen, once you take a closer look at them, none of them actually seem that unique at all. What am I saying? I mean, they're just slightly souped up versions of stuff that we already do, no? I mean, let's take a look at them in order. Let's look at each one as based on let's look at the mnemonic we used, the M's. Let's go through each one. So the first one is Mikra Megillah. Okay, Megillah. Yes, we only read Megillah Esther once a year on Purim. That's true. But is reading from a scroll really all that unusual? I read from the Torah this morning in shul. In fact, we read 4 times a week from the Torah scroll in shul. Monday, Thursday, twice on Shabbos. So what's so unique about reading the Megillah on Purim? Now, obviously, there's other Megillahs too. There's Megillas Eicha that we read on Tisha B'Av, right? And there's also Megillas Rus that we read on which holiday do we read Ruth? Shavuos, very good. And Megillat Kohelet, when? Ecclesiastes, on Sukkot. And Shir HaShirim, many people read it every Friday night, or at least on Pesach. So we read all 5 Megillas throughout the year. What makes it unique to Purim then? Meaning, I understand Megillas Esther is unique to Purim. But what I'm saying is, we we read the Megillah to offer thanks to God. I see all the hands. I'll get to you in a moment. Just a moment. Let me finish. I'll get to you. All right. Let me finish my point, and then I'll take all questions. Thanks. So the Megillah, I lost my train of thought. Sorry. The Megillah works as a stand-in for Hallel. I'm going to give you a text for that right now. Okay, it says it here in the halacha as Maimonides puts it. So that only makes our problem a little bit bigger, because Hallel we actually say every Rosh Chodesh and every holiday, right? Let's read it here in the words of Rambam, Maimonides' Mishnah Torah, Laws of Megillah. I have something very important to announce to you speaking about Rambam. We know that many people have a custom, as the Rebbe instituted, to study Maimonides throughout the year. And some people study the entire Maimonides work, Mishnah Torah, in 1 year. Some people study it over 3 years. Some people study one mitzvah a day. And this year being a year of Hakel, of unity, there will be a tremendous celebration on the 23rd of April for the culmination of the Rambam cycle studies. So, before I read this Rambam to you, I want to tell you that we're going to have this huge event at the Wanderers Stadium. I would like to book you guys the best seats possible, front row seats. Senior citizens should get the best seats, the front row seats. So, you let me know if you'll be able to come, and I will book you your seats online. It is going to be at the Wanderers Stadium on the 23rd of April. It is going to be a mega and amazing event that you don't want to miss. It is being organized by yours truly, along with, I should have put myself last, but Rabbi Masinter, Rabbi Katz, and the other rabbis and rebbetzins of Chabad House. We are organizing an incredible special event for 1 hour only on the Cricket Stadium. You will be able to come an hour or two earlier and get your favorite sports memorabilia signed by actual cricket players. But the event will be for 1 hour. It will be emceed by Mandy Yachad. You know Mandy Yachad? Mandy Yachad was a famous cricketer. So he will MC the event. And I would love for you all to come and be part of this. So don't miss it. 23rd of April, 6 weeks away. Yeah. All right. Now we'll read the halacha. Stephen, is your question relating to this? Okay, go ahead. Okay, true. It's the only time that we say a bracha that is true. We'll get back to that in a moment. Good point. Let's see here what Rambam tells us. He says it's not the recitation of Hallel and Chanukah alone that is a rabbinic ordinance, but rather at all times, that is, on all the days that the complete Hallel is recited, the obligation to do so is a rabbinic ordinance. There are 18 days during the year when it is a mitzvah to recite the entire Hallel. So here are the days. They are mentioned as, let me just see what's going on here. I'm seeing some, okay. All right, it's fine. We'll get back to that. They are the 8 days of Sukkot, the 8 days of Hanukkah, the first day of Pesach, the holiday of Shavuos. Hallel is not recited on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, since they are days of repentance, awe, and fear, and are not days of extra celebration. So now, if you ever wondered why we don't say Hallel on Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah, did you get your answer? Can you see it clear? Good. The sages did not ordain the recitation of Hallel on Purim. That's what concerns us. Why? Because the reading the Megillah serves the purpose of Hallel. Got it? So, is there anything truly unique about the Megillah reading on Purim? If it's about Hallel, it is another version, another way of reciting thanks, of appreciation to God for the wonders and miracles. We say Hallel every 18 times a year. So what's so unique about it? I'll add one more if you go to Yeshiva Mizrahi Shul. What's the one more if you go to Mizrahi? Anyone here from Mizrahi Shul? Yes? So what's the 19th time of the year that you say Hallel? Yom HaAtzmaut. Yeah. Maybe a lot of shuls. It's not all shuls, I'll say that. But let's look at some other things, right? There aren't really any other times we're specifically enjoined to give food to other people, right? But let's think for a moment about the point of this mitzvah. as you might infer from the Megillah, and as the commentaries explicitly state and tell us, and as I told you before, what's the point of Mishlach Manas? Why do we give gifts to? Why do we give munchies to our fellow friends? Why? He said it, to heighten the spirit of unity, of camaraderie on the holiday, unless he had another reason. Yeah.
Two friends, because they have 2 meals.
Also very good. Thank you. That's a good point. Esther had 2 meals. So we symbolize that by giving to 2 friends 2 ready-to-eat meals on Purim. Okay. That's a good and valid, perfect, good point. Thank you. I appreciate it. No, it certainly is. But the point is, why do we read the Megillah? Says the Rambam in text 3, in Mishnah Torah, the laws of Megillah, and Hanukkah, by the way. He says that Megillah takes the place of Hallel. So the point is, it's not something unique. Yeah. Oh, no, that's different. Megillah does mean a scroll, but we talk about 5 particular scrolls: Esther, Ruth, Eicha, Kohelet, and Shir HaShirim. Okay, let's look at the next text. This is from Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz. You might be familiar with him as the author, the composer of Lecha Dodi. You know the song Lecha Dodi we sing on Friday night? Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Adodi likrat kala. All right, he wasn't just the composer of Lecha Dodi. He also authored this work called Manot Halevi, and this is a commentary on Megillas Esther. And he writes, the village dwellers went further than the inhabitants of Shushan in initiating the practice of Mishlach Manas, symbolizing that they had joined together in love and fraternity, the opposite of their oppressor Haman's statement that they were scattered and divided. I think it was him who I was telling you before. I was looking for who I wanted to quote this from. Now you got it. Okay? So you know who I'm quoting. I'm quoting the Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz, composer of Lecha Dodi. He says the added practice of Mishlach Manas and Matanas Lavyanim. Again, the 2 M's, money to the poor and munchies to friends, that they were of one heart and in a state of brotherhood. Mordechai assented to the practice of Mishlach Manas, for it was through friendship and brotherhood that they were saved, and not through division. Very good. So what do we see here? Unity, friendship, love, camaraderie. Give me some more adjectives, right? Yes, one more M. We're already holding it. M13. Merriment. Very good. Now, do any of these words ring familiar to our ear? That we need to be merry, we need to be friendly, we need to be more loving, right? Are these unique to Purim? Are they specific to Purim? That's what I'm asking you. Huh? Always we need to be Avas Yisrael. You have to love your fellow Jew all the time, right? Not only is the aspect of Avas Yisrael not unique to the holiday of Purim, my friends, but in a sense, it is one of Judaism's most fundamental and general and generic concepts. Rabbi Akiva put it this way: what happened to my images that I put in here? Not everything's saved properly. Oh, here it is. Hold on a second. Okay, I must have messed up something here. Sorry, guys. Says Rabbi Akiva, to love your fellow as yourself. Zeklal Gadol B'Torah. It is the most fundamental principle of the. You all knew that. So if that's the case, then what is so unique about these mitzvahs? These are all important, fundamental concepts. Giving charity, we always give charity, right? Is there anything unique about giving charity on Purim? What about the feast that we have? The Mishta, the meal. What Jewish holiday would be complete without food? You know how they sum up Jewish holidays, right? They tried to kill us. We won. Let's eat. So if that's the case, what's so unique about eating on Purim? Besides the point, we Jews are always eating. Not me. I get fat just looking at the food. I look at the food and then I step on the scale. I go, oh my gosh, how did that happen? I thought it's the speedometer. Yeah. Very good. So what Miriam is telling us is, if you pay attention to the story, it is through this meal that Esther achieved to save the Jews. So the meal is an important part as well. Now, obviously, these elements, on the one hand, there are some unique aspects, but we need to highlight in what way do these 4 mitzvahs make the Purim story unique, right? What's so unique about them to the Purim miracle? Let's analyze it a little bit deeper. Let's get to something a little bit more. So Miriam, you're certainly giving us answers from the Megillah, but I want to take it a little bit deeper as well. Okay. True. So let's look a little bit deeper in it, because obviously the traditions we keep on Purim have depth, have meaning, have purpose, and it's not just arbitrary, it's not just ordinary, okay? And our 4 mitzvahs are different, not in kind, but in the degree that we do them. So yes, you might eat every day except for today, because today's a fast day, but we will serve lunch. You might, for those watching, we're serving lunch because we are a senior citizens program, and senior citizens don't have to be fasting today, just so you know. Because I don't know who's going to ask me later, Rabbi, how did you say that we could serve lunch? What, have you gone Reform or something? So I don't know, maybe Reform are also fasting today. I don't know, I can't even comment. Once again, let's look at this mnemonic and let's go through each of these mitzvahs of Purim. Reading the Megillah, right? Sure, we read the Torah scrolls all the time. That's true. Ladies, it's a shiur here. But unlike any other festival, on Purim, we read it twice. Once at night and the second time during the day. There's no other holiday. I know some people do read the Torah on Simchas Torah at night, but it's not our custom, so it doesn't count. No, I'm just kidding. What about Eicha? Well, the morning is not an obligation to read it. In fact, we don't read it as a community. People read it individually. Mishlach manas, the food gifts, the matanas levianim, those things we get, the money we give to the poor. Of course, we make a big deal about charity all the time. You should always give charity, my friends. It's a Jewish thing to give charity, to care for others. And I doubt there's any other community out there that is charitable as our community. But what's unique about charity on Purim is the giving. We don't just give to one person, but we have to give to how many? And it is of critical importance to give charity on Purim. So whereas the commandment of charity and loving your fellow is something that we always need to do, right? And you have to give to anyone he needs. But it doesn't mandate us to go out looking for people to give charity to. On Purim, what do we say? Whoever extends their hand, give to them. I have to remind you, I was once walking on Kingston Avenue in Brooklyn, where I come from. And there was these 2 hunchback guys wearing like these long coats on a hot summer day. You know, to me, they looked like, what's the word for it? I don't know, beggars or now there's a yid for what is the Yiddish word? Schnorrers, hobos, Rachmanis. There we go. Rachmanis better. Rachmanis is better. Yeah. So they're walking and they're holding their cups. Usually I have a cup to demonstrate with you my coffee, but no coffee for me today. Anyways, they're holding their cups and they look like they're collecting. So I put a quarter in each one's cup. They start screaming and shouting at me in Yiddish or Russian or Polish, I don't know what language. So I thought maybe, not shame, I didn't give them enough. So I put another quarter in. Now they're shouting even louder. So finally I threw like another nickel in or whatever it was. And now I saw the copy, pop out. So I understood why they were shouting at me. But the mitzvah is whoever extends their hands, give to them. That is the mitzvah of Purim. It's a mandate to give to anyone who extends their hand. Mishlach manas isn't limited to the needy. Unlike the rest of the year, you give charity to the poor. On Purim, we don't just give to the poor, we give to, exactly. So to the poor, we give monetary gifts because let them decide what they need. But to your rich friend, I won't mention any names here. He doesn't need your 10 rand or 100 rand or whatever you're going to give. It's about friendship. You ever give somebody a card, it's meaningless. Not about what you're giving, it's about how you're giving. That's why people make the Shalach Manas as elaborate and beautiful. Because it's about giving a meaningful gift to your friends. And on Purim, we're going to do exactly that. You give to people. Mishlach Manas, there's an emphasis on immediacy on Purim. And your food, the food gift is supposed to be something that is ready for consumption, not something they have to cook, no extra preparation that's necessary. And obviously the mitzvah of Matanas Lavyanim is not fulfilled with only finding and giving charity to one poor person. Obviously it has to be to two. So the point, relax. Don't worry, just put it onto it's fine. Yeah, the more spiel we make, the harder it is to turn it off. So the point I'm making is that on Purim, we emphasize this mitzvah. We give extra, we give more. That's the point. The more you give, the merrier. Now, even though it's true that we Jews like a hearty holiday repast, we like our parties, but you can normally tell a Purim feast from the moment you step into the room. Come on, everybody, sing along. It has to be festive. It has to be joyous. It has to be Purim, right? For the most part, religious Jews are fairly a conservative bunch. No, we don't get too drunk. Even on our Yom Tovs, we do it in moderation. My mother would say everything in moderation, including moderation, should be in moderation, right? As much as you enjoy the bracha, kiddush, and shul, or even a nice farbrengen, things shouldn't get out of control. While I'm not endorsing or supporting getting drunk on Purim, but get a little tipsy. Give your keys to someone else. Let an Uber take you home tonight or tomorrow and have a good time, right? So as is mandated in halacha, instead of a little sip of some kleine draken, or which other grape juices do we have here? Manischewitz, Kedem, not tonight. There we go. What did you say? Glenfiddich. That's what you want. Oh, Smyrna. Bells and whistles. Tonight, you drink a little more than usual. Okay? Obviously, you still have your religious obligations. Don't let it get too out of hand. But abyssal shikr, nothing wrong with that. Because the point is that it's Purim. So the mitzvahs of Purim are different, but only in the sense that they are to the nth degree. Everything is turned up to 11, to a little more extreme, a little crazier. Which only makes us wonder why. Clive, where's your why? There we go. So our starting presumption was that every holiday has to have its own unique set of practices and its own unique style. There's something different about the mitzvahs of Purim. What do they have to do with Purim? How does extremism, right? The extreme mitzvah observance. Every day you give charity. On Purim, extra charity. Every day you eat a meal, but on Purim, extra meal. Every time we read from the Torah, but on Purim, we read the Megillah twice. What's all this extraness? How does this make Purim extra special? Okay? So let's understand what is the purpose in general of a Jewish holiday. And to understand why we commemorate as we do, we have to first understand just what it is that we're commemorating. As it turns out, the real focus of our Purim celebration has a lot less to do with the historic events of the Purim miracle than you might suspect. In part, this revised understanding of Purim depends on a reassessment of all Jewish holidays. At the most basic level, Jewish holidays simply commemorate days past, right? They remind us, we give thanks that God emancipated our ancestors from slavery in Egypt. We remember that God created the world on Rosh Hashanah. We remember the huts in which our ancestors dwelled in the desert. We remember God gave us the Torah at Mount Sinai. But in Hasidic tradition, it's not just remembering what happened in the past. It's not his story. It's your story. It's our story. Okay? There's something deeper. There's a spiritual reality that has to be at play that we experience. Every year on the anniversary of the original event, those spiritual realities, the energies, the themes, the concepts, whatever you want to call them, they come to the fore, they blossom, they find expression anew. And this is what the holiday of Purim is really celebrating. Not just what happened once upon a time, but actually what's happening again and again this year and every year. And the same is true of Purim, my friends. We aren't just commemorating Mordechai and Esther and all the Megillah's characters, the plot lines, the sum of their parts, everything that happened in the story. It's a wonderful story, and Miriam tells me there's even a movie about it, which I have to find the time to watch. Is it good? There we are. It's not, how old is it? Okay, I guess. One night with the king. Sounds good. This isn't just about nostalgia about Esther's one night with the king, but it's much, much deeper. The movie gives you the nostalgic element. You could go back in the past. You could shed a tear. You could remember the story as it was, right? Why is it that when we watch a movie, we get all emotional and we start feeling sympathetic and empathetic to the characters in the film? Has that ever happened? You watch a movie and they're in love. Oh, you feel for them. Or, shame. They had a tragedy and you start, oh, shame. And somehow in the movie, they all look perfect. Just before they're dying, somehow they have perfect makeup and all. What about your neighbor? What about your friend? Maybe that's part of the reason, the purpose of Shalach Manas, why it says not to a stranger. Charity you give to the stranger. But what does the mitzvah say? They have to love your neighbor as yourself. If they're not your neighbor, you don't have to love them? No. The commandment does not love humanity. By the way, if every person loved their neighbor, I think the whole world would be loved, no? How far away from you does your neighbor have to live in order for you to love them? Far. So I think when the Torah is telling us love your neighbor as yourself, sometimes it's hardest to love those who are closest to us. Your own family you struggle to love. Why? Some neighbor, some Michigan, some person down there in the street doesn't bother me. But when it's your neighbor, it gets on your nerves. If it's your sibling, it gets under your skin. You know what I'm saying? No, nobody relates? So the point is that the mitzvahs of Purim are about experiencing it today, not just what happened long ago in the Purim story. We have to experience it as we ourselves are going through the miracle of Purim. And therefore the celebration is reach out to your neighbor, reach out to your friend. Something very interesting that the Talmud says, I'm reading it to you here. The day of Purim, I think I actually, what did I do? Okay, on Purim, he says the mitzvahs are performed with extra intensity. The day of Purim is as great as the day on which the Torah was given. The Baal Hilchos Gedolos, end of the Hilchos Megillah. Okay, so what is it about this, the day of Purim, meaning it's not just the historic once-off event of Purim in the story of the Megillah, one night with the king, but rather, as we celebrate Purim tonight and tomorrow, he says it's as great as Shavuos. Now, you know who was born on Shavuos? I was born on Shavuos, not Moshe. Moshe was born on the 7th of Adar last week. We were all born on Shavuos, really, besides for me. I mean, including me. I happen to be born on Shavuos, for real. But Shavuos is the birth of us as a Jewish nation. It's the day God gave us the Torah, the day we celebrate God's gift of where we became a people, when God gave us the Torah at Mount Sinai. So as impressive as this is, it seems oddly specific and something of a what is it saying? Shavuos is in May or June this year. The Torah was given several centuries before the Jews got to Persia and the Purim story happened. So what is the connection between Purim and the Torah and Shavuos? All right, what about the day of the Exodus? What about Rosh Hashanah? So we have to understand the comparison. I'm going to ask you to give me a little bit more time today because, even if you're eating food today, you should eat it a little bit. Don't have it right away. Because it's a fast day. Well, the truth is, on a fast day, even if you're eating, you shouldn't indulge. So one way of not indulging is pushing off the lunch a little bit. So we could finish, besides for food, gastronomic food, also some thoughtful food that I'm going to share with you. Yes, here it is. If you're going to quote me in a dissertation or something, we'll have to reference it in the right way, but we'll figure out how to do that. So let me share with you something the Talmud says. Okay, right here. Says the Gemara, why is my computer not charging? I have a problem with that because if it doesn't charge, then the whole shir will end in a moment. I won't have my PowerPoint to give you. So let us, okay. Says the Gemara. Ready? Let's read it. The verse says that the Jewish people, they stood under the mountain. That they stood, now literally it means at the foot of the mountain, right? How did I translate it here as the Gemara does? Under the mountain. Rav Abdimi ben Chama ben Hassa said, this teaches that the Holy One, blessed be He, overturned the mountain upon them like an inverted cask and said to them, if you accept the Torah, all is well. If not, Sham tehek v'raschem, there shall be your burial. Not West Park, Mount Sinai. Rav Acha ben Yaakov observed, this furnishes a strong protest, an indictment against the Torah. Why, said Rabbah? You want a shtickle Gemara? Azoy mit the grubben finger? Even so, we accepted it in the days of Achashverosh, for it is written, the Jews confirmed and took upon them, that is, they confirmed what they'd accepted long before. Kimu mashekiblu kfar. What does this mean? Let's focus on the first part of the text. Let's analyze it for a few minutes. Rav Avdimi, who is one of the Talmudic sages, he understands the biblical reference to the Jewish people standing beneath the Mount Sinai as a threat of actually being buried on that spot. How preposterous. Sounds like a mobster's proposition, no? Accept this offer or else. Did God make them an offer they couldn't refuse? What's going on? The Jews accepted the Torah under duress. They were forced. God would have buried them under the mountain had they not accepted the Torah right there. What on earth is happening? See this? Mountain, who could have been buried right there. Was kommt davor? Don't go anywhere, you'll become a heretic. You have to understand what's going on first. How does this make any sense? Why would God threaten his chosen people? He just liberated us from Egypt, and now God would say that accept the Torah, or what's happening here? Why would God need to twist their arm into accepting his Torah? After the plagues, the Exodus, and the splitting of the sea, the Jewish people willingly declared to God, Na'aseh v'nishma, whatever God says, we will do, we'll obey. So how can anyone say that they had been forced? So now Tosfos was one of the commentaries on the Torah. Let me put the Tosfos up for you. Tosfos says, what does it mean? He overturned the mountain upon them like an inverted cask. Why would this be necessary if the Jews already accepted the Torah by saying, we will do and we will obey? Right? The story of Matan Torah could only be understood in the historical context. 3,335 years ago, after spending 2 centuries in abject Egyptian slavery, enduring horrific, what would the word be? Pharaoh's persecution. And then along comes Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, the savior of the Jewish people. He appears on the scene. And over the next few months, the Egyptians are brought to their heel through a series of mind-blowing, miraculous plagues that I told you, we're transitioning already into Pesach now. Getting ready. Pesach is just 4 weeks away, my friends. Right? And the Jews race out of Egypt. And now we celebrate Pesach every year with matzah and maror and all the other goodies and a Pesach retreat. Splitting of the sea, all the other wonders and miracles. And then when they get to Mount Sinai, all the miracles along the way, don't forget, manna falls from heaven. And God protects them with these clouds in the sky. And the Jews are whisked off to Mount Sinai and presented with the Torah, which they readily accept. Think about this whole story. That also makes for a good movie. I never watched the 10 Commandments. Does it take us through all those steps? It's a great, all the trappings of a fairy tale, which in a way is precisely the problem, right? So let's understand. Let's take a look. In today's era of Me Too, you know what I'm talking about? Me Too. All the swirling allegations of abuse and coercions all around us. It's fairly obvious that the notions of consent can get quite tricky when there's a real imbalance in a relationship. And we've seen too many of those stories happening around us, right? And that's true of any passive fairy tale princess story. There's the dynamic prince, and she's forced. Somebody put out a very weird message today, some rabbi at UC Berkeley in California, saying, we learn from the Purim story how intermarriage is a good thing. Esther didn't willingly marry Ahasuerus. She was coerced into that relationship. So now, if we're going to say right here in the story of Sinai that we were forced, that we were coerced into this, then what kind of a story is this? Like, it loses the whole romance of the Jews accepting the Torah, Na'aseh v'nishma. If we're saying that they were coerced, that God said, take it or I'll bury you under this mountain. How does it make sense? Just like we understand the image of God suspending Mount Sinai over their heads, obviously is only a parable. It's a metaphor. So we can understand the Talmud's depiction of God's threat to the Jews also as a metaphoric, allegoric message. And let me share it with you as Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the Alter Rebbe, understands it. So text 9. And the truth is, I think I need to summarize it. So if you're watching the video later on, you could pause it right here and read the text. But because we are running short of time, I'm going to paraphrase it for you. The Alter Rebbe explains here that this image of God suspending this overturned barrel, the mountain over their heads, we have to understand what that means. The point is to say that God was surrounding and embracing the Jewish people with his all-encompassing, overwhelming love. It was like a hug. And this love is so overwhelming that the Jews cannot help but reciprocate and respond with their own overwhelming love in the Hasidic understanding of this. Shift happens. So here's another interesting thing that the Talmud says. Let me put it up here. The Talmud Gemara Shabbos text is at the bottom. We read this with this text where it says about God's delivery of the Ten Commandments. Said Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, and every word that went forth from the mouth of the Holy One, blessed be He, the souls of Israel departed, for it said, my soul went forth when He spoke. If their souls departed at the first word, how could they receive the second word? Says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, and I highlighted a few at the bottom, I boldened it. God brought out the dew, which will be used for resurrection of the dead, and God revived them with that. So once again, we find the shocking idea of death at Mount Sinai, that the people's souls actually expired, the Gemara says. First, we saw the threat of burial if they won't accept the Torah at the mountain, and now the Jews actually died upon hearing the commandments. What's happening? In both cases, the point is to convey the uncontainable magnitude of this spiritual moment. In mystical terms, the Alter Rebbe puts it, the godly revelation at Sinai was so great that their souls left their bodies and became subsumed in divinity. Here are his words. Again, I'm going to suggest that you can pause the screen if you want to read all the words. The point the Alter Rebbe is making is that what it means to be presented with the Torah was this overwhelming experience. It was just too much for them to bear. So, using the same metaphor, it was like a great, big, irresistible bear hug. The Jews cannot simply back off or look the other way. With God offering them an opportunity to maintain this tremendous connection with Hashem. How? Through the Torah, they jumped to accept it. Nasa v'nishma, we will do, we'll accept. Right? How could they say no? In that moment, it was impossible. But precisely because of the blinding, overwhelming obviousness of their choice, it was hardly a choice at all. When someone is unable to say no, is their yes real? You know what I'm saying? The yes loses significance. So in this sense, accepting the Torah wasn't really their choice. It was forced upon the Jewish people. How could they say no? Somebody gives you $1 million and asks you for 100. You gonna say no? God just did everything for them. It was overwhelming. How could they say no? Sometimes the boss asks you to do something. You don't realize what it's going to entail. Okay. Only after you realize, ooh. So this brings us back to that tricky concept of consent in a relationship of imbalanced power. When you realize the underling has little say in the matter, their consent seems to lose some of its significance. And that's why oftentimes people will argue, but there was consent. Tell me, can a youngster really consent to something? That's abuse. Not, God forbid, to call this what God did abuse, God forbid. I'm just using an extreme example. But the point Chassidus is saying is that it was so overwhelming they couldn't say no. But of course, then the question is, did they really say yes? Did we really even accept the Torah? And this is the meaning of what Rav Acha was saying. He says it's like an indictment against the Torah. Because really, how could they have said yes? Because they, did we really accept the Torah mitzvahs? We said yes, it's true. But it was sort of overwhelming. God did all that for us. What, we're going to say no? But did we really understand what did it entail? So how do we answer this question? In a few more moments, let us get back to the Purim story. Let's understand it from the Purim story's perspective. And then, when we understand the link to Purim, we can understand this idea, this concept, just a little bit better, and hopefully it will give us a better understanding. Because before we said the greatness of Purim is when we compare it with Shavuos, right? That's the day God gave us the Torah. But under closer analysis, I'm not putting you back into school. You don't have to do an analytical exam or anything. But we see that Matan Torah seems a little bit not as what it's cracked up to be, right? And maybe that's why it's not the most popular holiday. I mean, for me, it is. I celebrate my birthday. And everybody likes to get cheesecake. But the thing is, all the fire and all the fireworks and all the, what do you call it? All that stuff that went on at Mount Sinai, if we didn't really accept the Torah, if we were forced, it's a little bit dubious. Okay? So we have to understand what's the deal, what's the connection between that and Purim. And the Talmud tells us that Purim is a deep connection. How could it be? You wonder, okay? How is it that Purim could accomplish what Matan Torah did not? How does Purim concretize, close and seal the deal of what happened at Mount Sinai? And the answer is nothing. Sorry. In fact, Purim has a whole lot less that, let me try to synchronize, let me try to put these thoughts. Who was it that some modern architect said, less is more? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes when a structure is left unadorned, right, stripped away of any fussy knickknacks and elaborate accoutrements, then its true power and elegance can shine forth. Well, this is what happened way back on the first Purim in Persia. Once again, context is useful in understanding the historical moment. So let's go back to the Purim story for a moment, and let's understand perhaps the most pivotal point in Jewish history since the Exodus. Because after the first temple, what happened? The temple was destroyed. Jews were exiled where? Babylon. Babylon extended out into Persia, Persian Empire. And there was a false start return. After 70 years, people started going back to the Holy Land. Now, the thing is, things were starting to look somewhat hopeless at the time. And the banquet described in the opening chapter, the Megillah, actually is celebrating a failure of the Jews. Because you know what Achashverosh served? All those treif delicacies. It was a gastronomic wonderland. You know what dishes he served them on? Dishes from the temple. The gold, the silver, the crystal, all. And it was a celebration. Look, the Jews won't return to Israel. The irony that Jews participated in such a celebration. It's the same irony of Jews celebrating Halloween, like you said. They hadn't gone back. The temple wasn't rebuilt. And there was a time, for the Jews, this wasn't a great time at all. Okay? Then, of course, Haman comes up with this plot of the final plan, extermination of the Jewish people. And even if his plan of genocide would have, you think about that story, the Jewish people actually, until that point, never faced this kind of uncompromising, murderous anti-Semitism. There was never before a time, because in Egypt, it was just the males who were threatened, and the rest of the population were enslaved. Remember the whole story? Here, Haman's plot was to kill every man, woman, and child. Socially, politically, physically, the Jews were worth dirt. 70-something years before, they were living gloriously in the Holy Land with a magnificent temple destroyed. Now, Haman threatening to annihilate, to obliterate, to exterminate every single Jew. They were scorned. They were ignored. They were defenseless. Achashverosh's sealed and signed decree was every Jew is to be, their lives would be completely terminated. They couldn't see anyone riding to their rescue. Noah. No light coming over the horizon. And from God, where was God? We don't even see God's name in the Megillah, like we said, right? There was nothing. Total deafening silence. So in the face of all this, who would want to be Jewish? You want to be a Jew? I mean, oftentimes when people tell me they're converting to Judaism, there's enough of us already being targeted. You also want to be? You also want that? Now keep in mind that Haman hadn't developed the biological conception, that idea of the Nazis. He wanted to kill the people who acted and identified as Jews. So considering the catastrophic risk and the invisible rewards, had anybody actually betrayed their Judaism, what would happen to them? They could leave their faith, and that's it. They don't have to be Jewish. They could just, what would you do in such a climate? Would you wear a yarmulke in the streets? Would you go to shul on Shabbos? Would you send your kids to Jewish schools if you knew that their life was in danger? The Jews of Persia would have had to be mad to hitch their wagon to a horse heading for a cliff. Seeing as they had an option to take off the yarmulkes and to start dressing like ordinary Persians, speak the language, adopt the local customs, do what Persians do, and you would have been saved. Yeah? Only those who acted Jewish, only those who identified as Jews. He said only the nation of Mordechai, those who, if there was ever a time to jump the Jewish ship, that was it. But that is not what happened. Purim, at the darkest moment in Jewish history, stands in stark contrast to the spectacular scenes of Matan Torah. At Sinai, the Jews had no reason to reject the Torah, right? I mean, they had every reason to say yes. Okay, we'll say yes. God forced them, so to say. I mean, they're not going to say no. God was very kind to them, so nobody said no. But now they had every reason at Purim to leave Judaism. No reason to stay. Stay for what? To be annihilated? But yet we see they stayed. Not only did the Jews of Persia and beyond remain loyal to their people and to their faith, but they did so proudly and openly. Mordechai, the Talmud tells us, even made public gatherings for prayer and study to defy Haman and to thwart his scheme. That's right. Says the Alter Rebbe, again, I'm going to tell you if you want to read his text, pause the video. He says, had they apostatized, you ever heard such a word, apostatized? Right? Nothing would have happened to them. For the decree only applied to Jews. If you weren't Jewish, you wouldn't be part of this. Nevertheless, Hitler Yamach Shema did very different. With Hitler, you couldn't become un-Jewish. Hitler was worse than Haman, because Haman was only against Jews. Hitler was out to get anyone who had even a trace of Jewish race. Hitler hated Jews, Hitler hated blacks, Hitler hated gypsies, Hitler hated gays, Hitler hated anyone who wasn't part of his Aryan race. So in total defiance of all expectations, in the utter absence of any other, no voice coming from above, no one else coming to their rescue, yet we see how the Jewish people stood tall, strong, proud, and clung to their faith. At Sinai, it was hard to say that the Jews really chose God and his Torah. It was something imposed upon them from above, like Sleeping Beauty. They had no say in the matter. But at Purim, it was all of them, right? It was all them themselves. The choice to stick with Judaism came entirely from within, from the depths of the Jewish soul. And here's where the Alter Rebbe explains this idea. You could read the text, how the difference, the distinction between Purim and the giving of the Torah. And that's what made the Jews unique at that time of Purim. They realized that being a Torah Jew was a matter of autonomy of choice. It didn't come from elsewhere. It came from themselves. That's the meaning of the verse, Kinu Mashakiblu Kar. They signed and sealed the deal that they did originally at Mount Sinai. They accepted the Torah at this point. And here's the point. The difference between ordinary religious practice, which is like what the Jews said yes at Mount Sinai, and the Purim way of doing things is when we do things by choice, because you want to do it, Nobody forced you to come in this morning. Did anyone? No, you came by your free choice. And that's how you could tell when someone's doing something, a job or a house chore or a religious ritual, whatever it might be. They're doing it if they're forced to do it, or they're doing it because somebody's forcing them to do it. If you hate doing any sort of cleaning at home, you'll do what's expected of you, but you won't do a bit more, right? But if you love what you're doing, you'll go above and beyond, right? After the dishes, you might do some vacuuming, then the laundry, then go outside and clean the car, okay? Or you ask your domestic helper to do it. But the point is, you keep doing what you love to do. You love cooking. You're going to start cooking. You're going to make a feast. And with this, we can understand, the Rebbe emphasizes that here, the significance of the 4 mitzvahs of Purim. And I want to conclude with this. Purim, as we have discussed today at length, is the day that we celebrate receiving and truly accepting our Judaism. We did it not because we're forced, but because we want to, because we care, right? This was a renewal, a rejuvenation. And we indicate that our religious observance is something that is radically transformed. We do it because we are in love with it. And when we're in love with something, you will go above and beyond. You'll go a little crazy with it. Instead of just doing the regular routine required amount, you'll go and do the extra mile. Why? Because you are in love. And that's the point. The idea of Purim is go the extra mile, do more. The fact that the traditions of Purim, they seem generic because maybe these are regular routine things that we do in Judaism, but we don't do it generically. We do it very deeply. We do it from a place of love. We do it with all our heart. We do it with all our soul. That's how we do Purim, because it comes from wanting out of passionate love, not from being forced to do it. And so every part of Purim that we're going to do, from the feasting to the celebrating, eat, drink, be merry. Get so drunk with mitzvahs, not on whiskey. Right? Why? Because on Purim, we don't just do things in an ordinary way. We do it in an extraordinary way. That's how we do Purim. And that's the point. The point of Purim isn't just about materialistic experiences as it might look to some degree. But that's why we go out of the way. We do these elaborate gifts. When religion and our relationship with God begins to become stagnant, if it's just rote, that's not the way we want our Judaism to be. Our Judaism has to be something that's freilich, that's joyous. Less oy, more joy, very good. And we reach deep within ourselves. We go deep into our Jewish identity with enthusiasm, with passion, with excitement, with freilichkeit. You know what I'm saying? That's Purim. Go all out, above and beyond. First, reach out to others, give charity to someone else, not just to one person, at least to two, to anyone extends their hand. And then we go outside ourselves. We challenge our ways of thinking and our practice. We read the Megillah not once, but twice. We give gifts to our friends. Why to our friends? Or to our neighbors, it says. Because we want good relationships with them, not just with strangers. It's very easy to love Am Yisrael. But what about loving Reb Yisrael? My friends, Purim is a celebration of us owning our Judaism. If you want to read that text, I'll put it up again. This is in the words of Maimonides. The point is the day that we remember that we have to own our Judaism. It's not just about the guilt trip that perhaps our Baba Sarah, whoever gave you a little guilt trip in life. But this is a day to celebrate our Yiddishkeit. What is going on here? And my friends, go ahead, celebrate, have a great Purim. Please join us. If you're going to come tonight, it's at our shul. We're going to start 6 p.m. with Mincha, followed by the Torah reading and the Torah reading before Mincha, Machzis HaShekel. And then we will have our Purim celebration. You're all welcome to join us if you like. Tomorrow, right here at 11 o'clock. And then the Iranian Purim party tomorrow evening. Happy Purim, everyone. Have fun. Yeah.